Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are in the world. Share and take care of yourself in this here season. Let's look at some of the information from the last recording. Don't get stuck. 4 months, 4 seasons. So let's move into the fifth month, which is the fifth season on the natal chart or the chart of life. Also, it is a part of the calendar, but it represents the sun. And this is information that is not talked about, which helps us to actually connect information that's kind of been oppressed, suppressed, locked up, and put in, bought somewhere in other countries. All right, so here we go. The sun. What is the sun for? SUN. But then in the Bible, what is the sun for? SON. So both of them shine the light on something, right? They shine the light in the midst of darkness, and this is Genesis. So when we go on and we look at the sun in respect to the last recording, we talked about Ecclesiastes. To everything, there's a season. And so our seasons change, and this is where we get caught up. We don't even recognize that our seasons change in family, in partnerships, how we respond, how we react in work, in professions. The seasons change. If we pay attention to ourselves, or like Aristotle, Socrates, whichever philosopher wrote this statement, know thyself. If we paid attention to know thyself, then what would happen is we would become aware of how our mind and our hearts are functioning, what we feel about certain situations at certain seasons of life. The seasons is not the year or 7 years. It becomes relative to a monthly change, because there are changes that are being made in the universe, which we are part of, and in the world. The universe, unite verse, universe, bring it together in a verse, be united in the verse. What is the verse that we're speaking? So here, as we move into an understanding of what the sun does, it shines. We get vitamin D from it if we go out and we walk. It helps to enhance our bodies, but in most cases, people are working indoors and they may lack vitamin D, so they have vitamins now. The other thing that the sun does is it shines on the seeds that we've planted spiritually and in the physical world. And so as we begin to think about this, what happens is that we know whatever we planted, it takes time for it to grow, even a baby in a mother's womb, which brings us to even the discussion of beginning of Genesis, where a woman is not really discussed. And women are very important, because our Father who art in heaven speaks of the man, but it does not talk about what the woman has to give in earth as it is in heaven. So we have some information that has been eloquently taken away, but we want to bring back information so we can complete summaries, sentences. I don't want to change the Bible, but you got to look and see that a child cannot be in the spirit even without a father and a mother, because even in the beginning, God created man, and before there was any physical appearance, the spiritual part of man and woman was already documented. It's just not looked at in verse 26 of the first book of Genesis and into the second, let us. Even God said, let us. So there is a plural to him. Now I want to move on from there, because, these are things that I teach in my classes on Thursday evenings. This is not just Bible study. This is a study of the human being you, being me. So if we go to the fifth month, we'll find that after the first 4 months, April through July, have proceeded, there's a spiritual understanding that we've been seeding into. When the sun time comes, which is August, August is saying to us, watch for your manifestation. This is where you're watching over your harvest. Even Jesus tells us in, Matthew, the book of Matthew, to mind how we till and sow our ground. And we have so many parables there that we can look at, but this shines the light on why he's saying that. This is not religion that he's speaking of, because John was already the religious part of man, the practice, but Jesus becomes the actual influencer of the spiritual realm that says, believe what you're planting in and what you cannot see. By faith, all things are possible. So even in that, we want to look at maybe why in the sowing process, no one really spoke of the woman, because a woman is fertile ground in most cases. She is the seed bearer. She carries the seed. And so here we have the earth not spoken of as the woman or Gaia, and there's a overlooking of the woman. We want to bring in heaven and earth together as we pray. We want to bind in heaven and bind in earth as we pray, but know what we're praying to and how we're praying, because if you have no knowledge of heaven and earth and what they actually represent, then there is misunderstanding, and we lack understanding. So here we're going to go on. The sun is creating now, it's helping to create. The sun is also helping to produce. The reason why people go back, let's look at Exodus 31 and 2. Rather than remaining steadfast in faith, Aaron gave in. He ordered the people to collect all the gold in their possession and used it to create a golden calf for worship. Now, when we look at the calf reminds us of the Taurus sign, and that sign or symbol is also down on Wall Street. It is a bull, because after a calf grows up, it is going to be a cow, which is female, or a bull. So we see that the male identification of stock market or money is down on Wall Street. You got to catch that. And so there is a creation there after the Cancer energy has moved on, because Cancer represents woman. And so now we've come into the sun, where the manifestations of the sons of God are coming forward. And so the manifestation is coming forward because the sun is illuminating itself, shining itself for growth in dark places where people can see better, they can think better, or they can function better. They can even the sun shines that light on the seed growing, even in the garden, the harvest, and so on and so forth. And so why are we bringing that into perspective? Because here the sun is showing what it does, but we also want to know what has got the sun to the place that it is, because the sun just didn't create itself. The sun came forth out of darkness, and that is read in the first verses of Genesis. It's coming out of darkness, which is the womb. There's a womb, but who carries the womb? Even, Jesus was buried in a tomb, but it was a womb, and that tomb also is indicative to the womb. And so I'm going to leave us there, and we'll go further into the discussion. Understand that whatever you can bury and whatever you can release, it has to rise if it has any kind of importance to your life, because the process of life that Jesus gave us is not religion, but it is a rising. It must be replanted to transform, change, let go, release, or to come forth in a better way, a different manner, or it is no longer good to our lives. I hope you understand that, because the transformation process that a lot of people are experiencing, and some don't even know, is that I have to let go to grow. It's not always that you have to let it go. It could come back in a different form. It could come back as a different type of way of living, working. Relationship can change, but it could be the same people. It's transforming. You know what I'm saying? Like the Transformers. They always went back to their same self, but they had to change the way things were being done. Here, we're even in a mindset of collectiveness changing. And so, what does that have to do with the calf? The people were going back to the old way of doing things, of worshiping the calf or worshiping money, really, because calf is indicative or, that to money. And so they were going back to the old way because they didn't trust the new way. Maybe they hadn't seen that there was a new way coming. And so we encourage each other to keep looking at God's will and God's way. God's will is only for a greater level of production, elevation. Let's bring the woman in and let's hear what the woman has to say. The women in the yin and yang energy is what I'm saying. A man can be in the woman's energy and never gave his analogy of what he thought, meaning that he's in touch with his female side, but never got a chance to speak his voice. Here is where we begin to look at the future and how we can grow. Growth means that I can step up. I'm accepted. It means that I have to be accepted, and I understand that I'm accepted in his beloved, in her beloved. This is spiritual. And what happens is then in the fatted calf instance, I don't fear that I will be in lack as the children of Israel and Aaron were looking at over there in Exodus 31. What I am believing is that even though I don't know where I'm going and what I'm doing, God has a plan for me, and I don't have to go back to the old way of worship or creating and making funds. I can look at how it can be transformed, how I can use the old things and walk into my new. Use the old things, not use them in the capacity that I did last year or 10 years ago, since time is changing, but use it in the transformation process, in the good that it has for me. All right, so you guys be blessed, share, have a wonderful day, and I thank you for listening. Bye bye.